Imagine owning a hospital so advanced that politicians fly in from other countries just to get a checkup. Now, imagine dying in the lobby of that very hospital because not a single one of your $1,000,000 machines can save you. This is the story of Dr. Vincent Thorne, a man who believed he was a god in a white coat, and a homeless man named Elias, whose blood held a secret more valuable than gold. Dr. Vincent Thorne was the CEO of Thorne Medical Center. He was a man of sharp suits and even sharper words. He didn't become a doctor to heal. He became a doctor to rule. To him, patients were just walking credit cards. If you couldn't pay the exorbitant fees up front, you didn't get past the sliding glass doors. He kept his hospital spotless, treating poverty like an infection that needed to be sterilized. Outside those pristine doors lived Elias. Elias was a veteran, a man whose life had been shattered by war and forgotten by the system. He sat on the sidewalk near the emergency entrance, not begging for money, but simply seeking warmth from the building's vents. He was quiet, dirty, and wrapped in layers of old blankets. To the world, he was invisible. To Dr. Thorne, he was a stain on the corporate image. It happened on a freezing Tuesday morning. Dr. Thorne arrived in his Bentley and saw Elias sitting near the VIP entrance. The doctor was furious. He didn't see a human being. He saw a marketing problem. He marched over, his expensive shoes clicking on the pavement. "Get up!" Thorne barked. "You are scaring the clientele. Move, or I'll have security throw you in the dumpster where you belong." Elias looked up with tired, yellowed eyes. He didn't argue. He didn't shout back. He just coughed a deep, rattling cough and tried to gather his meager belongings. "I just need a moment, sir. It's cold," Elias whispered. Thorne kicked the man's cardboard sign away. "I don't care. This is a private facility, not a shelter for failures. Go die somewhere else." Security guards rushed out, eager to please their boss. They grabbed Elias roughly by the arms and dragged him to the street corner, tossing his backpack into a puddle. Thorne watched with a satisfied smirk, adjusted his tie, and walked into his empire. He felt powerful. He had cleaned up the mess. He had no idea that he had just kicked out the only person on earth who could keep his heart beating. The day continued as usual. Thorne fired a nurse for being 2 minutes late and yelled at a surgeon for using too many supplies. He was on top of the world. But around 3 p.m., while reviewing profits in his penthouse office, Thorne felt a strange flutter in his chest. It wasn't pain, exactly. It felt like a bird was trapped inside his ribcage. He ignored it. He was healthy. He ran marathons. He was invincible. By 4 p.m., the flutter turned into a sledgehammer. Thorne collapsed onto his glass desk, gasping for air. His vision blurred. He managed to press the panic button under his desk before darkness swallowed him. When he woke up, he wasn't the CEO anymore. He was a patient. He was lying in his own VIP suite, hooked up to the very machines he bragged about, surrounded by a team of terrified doctors. What happened? Thorne croaked. The chief of cardiology, Dr. Evans, looked pale. "Sir, you've gone into acute bone marrow failure. It's sudden and aggressive. Your body has stopped producing red blood cells completely. It's an autoimmune reaction we've never seen develop this fast." Thorne laughed nervously. "So, give me a transfusion. We have the biggest blood bank in the city." Dr. Evans hesitated. "That's the problem, sir. We typed your blood. You have the golden blood, Rh null. It is the rarest blood type in the world. Less than 50 people on the planet have it." Thorne froze. He knew what that meant. He could give blood to anyone, but he could only receive blood from someone exactly like him. If he received anything else, his body would reject it and shut down instantly. "Find a donor!" Thorne screamed, his face flushing red with panic. "Fly them in. I don't care if they are in China or Antarctica. Pay them $1,000,000. The team scrambled. They contacted the Red Cross, the World Health Organization, private databases. The clock was ticking. Thorne's oxygen levels were dropping. He was suffocating in a room full of oxygen. Hours passed. Night fell. Thorne lay in bed, watching the monitor beep. Every beep was a second of his life slipping away. The irony was cruel. He had billions in the bank, but he couldn't buy a single drop of the red liquid he needed. The doctors returned with heads bowed. "The closest donor is in Brazil, sir, but he is elderly and ill. He can't donate. There is no one else in the registry. Thorne began to cry. Not tears of sadness, but tears of rage. How could he, the great Vincent Thorne, die like this? He thought about his legacy. Who would come to his funeral? The employees he bullied, the patients he bankrupted. He realized he was dying alone. The coldness he had shown the world was now filling his own veins. Suddenly, a young intern burst into the room. She was out of breath. Dr. Thorne. Dr. Evans. I was checking the old manual records from the free clinic we closed down last year. Thorne had shut down the free clinic because it wasn't profitable. There was a man, a homeless veteran who came in for a flu shot 3 years ago. His blood work was flagged as an anomaly. We thought it was a lab error, so it was never digital. What are you saying? Evans asked. I reran the sample data, the intern said, shaken. It wasn't an error. He is RH now. He is match. Thorne sat up. Dizzy, who is he? Where is he? The intern looked at the file. His name is Elias Vance. No fixed address, but security logs say he was removed from the premises this morning. Thorne felt the room spin. The man he had kicked, the man he had called a failure. That man was his only hope. Find him, Thorne whispered, his voice trembling with terror. Send every security guard, every ambulance driver, comb the streets. If you don't find him, I'm dead. The search began. It was pouring rain outside. The security guards who had roughly dragged Elias away were now running through alleyways, shining flashlights into dumpsters, screaming his name with desperation. Elias, please. They weren't chasing a vagrant anymore. They were chasing the Holy Grail. But the streets were empty. The cold had driven everyone underground. Thorne's condition worsened. He started hallucinating. He saw the faces of people he had denied coverage to. He felt the cold of the pavement he had forced Elias onto. He realized that karma wasn't just a concept. It was a biological reality. He was freezing, just like the man he kicked out. 2 blocks away, under a bridge, Elias was shivering. He had found a dry spot behind some crates. He was weak. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. He saw the flashlights of the security guards in the distance. He thought they were coming to arrest him or beat him up for loitering. He shrank back into the shadows, pulling his blanket tight. Go away, he prayed. Leave me alone. One of the guards, a young man named Mike, who had secretly hated Thorne's orders that morning, spotted the movement. He didn't run over aggressively. He approached slowly. Elias, he called out softly. We aren't here to hurt you. Please. The doctor, he's dying. He needs you. Elias looked at him with confusion. The man who kicked me. Why would he need me? Your blood, Mike explained, kneeling in the mud. You have special blood. You're the only one who can save him. Elias laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Save him? He treated me like a rat. Why should I save a monster? Mike didn't have an answer. He knew Elias was right. Because, ... Because maybe you're not like him, Mike said. Back in the penthouse, Thorne was fading. His heart rate was erratic. He was preparing to die. Then the doors opened. Mikey walked in wet and muddy, and behind him, limping and smelling of the streets, was Elias. The room went silent. The millionaire and the beggar locked eyes again. But this Chimmy, the millionaire, was the one on his back, helpless. You, da. Double quotes, Thorne whispered. Tears leaked from his eyes. I kicked you. Elias stood at the foot of the bed. He looked at the machines, the luxury, the fear in the rich man's eyes. Yes, you did, Elias said calmly. You told me to go die somewhere else. I could turn around and leave. I could let nature take its course. Thorne tried to reach out a hand, but he was too weak. Please, ... quotes he choked out. I'll give you anything. Money, a house, anything. Elias shook his head. I don't want your money, Vincent. Money made you cruel. The doctors held their breath. If Elias walked out, the CEO was dead in an hour. Elias stepped closer. He rolled up his dirty sleeve, revealing a scarred arm. "I was a medic in the army," Elias said softly. "I swore an oath to save lives, even the lives of people I don't like, even the lives of enemies." He looked at the nurse. "Take what you need, not for his money, but because if I let him die, I become just like him." The room erupted into action. Nurses rushed to prep Elias. They cleaned his arm, inserted the needle. The dark red blood began to flow through the tube, out of the man who had nothing, and into the man who had everything. Thorne watched the blood travel through the clear plastic line. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. It was the color of mercy. The transfusion took hours. Elias sat in a chair next to the bed, eating a sandwich the nurse gave him. He watched color return to Thorne's pale face. Thorne didn't sleep. He just watched Elias. He studied the wrinkles, the dirt under the fingernails, the quiet dignity. He realized that this bum was a better man than he had ever been in his 50 years of success. 28 by morning, Thorne was stable. His vitals were strong. The golden blood had done its job. Elias stood up to leave. "Wait," Thorne croaked. He tried to sit up. "Where are you going?" Elias shrugged. "Back to my bridge." The rain stopped. Thorne shook his head violently. "No! No! You're not!" Thorne pressed the intercom. "Get the legal team in here." Now, he looked at Elias. "You aren't going back to the street. You saved my life when I didn't deserve it. You taught me that my life was worthless, even with all this money." Elias looked uncomfortable. "I don't need charity, doctor." "It's not charity," Thorne said firmly. "It's a partnership." And he meant it. In that hospital bed, Vincent Thorne died. The man who woke up was someone else. Over the next few weeks, the hospital underwent a transformation that shocked the city. The VIP-only signs were torn down. Thorne opened a new wing, the Elias Vance wing. It wasn't for the rich. It was a state-of-the-art center for veterans and the homeless, completely free of charge. And the director of patient advocacy for that wing. It was Elias. Thorne gave him a job, a salary, and an apartment. But more importantly, he gave him a purpose. Elias cleaned up well. In a suit, he looked distinguished, wise. He walked the halls, not as a ghost, but as a leader. He taught the interns that looking a patient in the eye was more important than looking at their chart. He made sure no one was ever kicked out into the cold again. Dr. Thorne changed too. He stopped wearing $5,000 suits. He started spending time in the AR, talking to families who couldn't pay. He realized that the hospital wasn't a factory, it was a sanctuary. He and Elias became unlikely friends. They ate lunch together every day in the cafeteria. The shark and the soldier. One day, a year later, a new board member complained about the type of people hanging around the lobby in the new wing. "It looks bad for business." "Vincent," the board member said. Thorne smiled. He pointed to Elias, who was helping an old woman with her bags. "See that man? He lived on that sidewalk, and he is the only reason I am standing here to fire you." Thorne fired the board member on the spot. He realized that protecting the culture of kindness was more important than profits. The hospital's revenue actually went up. People traveled from all over, not just for the technology, but for the care. They knew that at Thorne Medical, every life mattered. Elias eventually reconnected with his estranged family. With a job and a home, he had the confidence to call his daughter. Thorne drove him to the reunion. He watched from the car as Elias hugged his grandkids. Thorne cried, alone in his Bentley, finally understanding what true wealth looked like. Years passed. When Elias finally passed away of old age, the funeral was the biggest the city had ever seen. Thousands of people attended, rich, poor, veterans, doctors. Thorne stood at the podium, gray-haired and humble. He didn't talk about Elias's blood. He talked about his heart. "I had the rarest blood type in the world," Thorne told the crowd. "But Elias had the rarest soul. He gave me life twice, once with his blood and once with his forgiveness. I was a dead man walking until he taught me how to be human." Thorne dedicated the rest of his life to the foundation. He mandated that every medical student had to spend a month living on a minimum wage budget to understand their patients. He changed the medical curriculum in the state. The legacy of the homeless man on the corner rippled out to save thousands. Today, if you visit the hospital, you will see a statue by the entrance. It's not of Dr. Thorne. It's of Elias, sitting on a bench, wrapping a blanket around a shivering stranger. The inscription reads, "The cure for everything is kindness." And Dr. Thorne, he keeps a photo of Elias on his desk, right next to his family photos. Every time he has to make a tough decision, he looks at the man who was once invisible and asks himself, what would Elias do? This story reminds us that we never know who holds the key to our survival. The person you ignore today might be the only one who can save you tomorrow. We are all connected by blood, but we are defined by how we treat those who have nothing to offer us but their humanity. If this story touched your soul, please hit the like button. Let's spread the message that every life has value. Calm and kindness saves below if you believe in second chances. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that give a voice to the voiceless. See you in the next video.